Good evening to you. It is Wednesday, January 14th at 8:51. Whew, that's a heavy hitter. Purdue is the first of a triple header on the Big Ten Network. They played Iowa tonight in Mackey Arena. It was a game that drew the ire out of me. I don't know about you. I'm going to talk to you about the things that frustrated me and the things that I delighted in as well. Appreciate you being here for your post-game cool down. Before I dig into the game too much, let me thank my pals at AJ's. When you've just watched Purdue grind one out after playing, let's just call it less than optimal basketball for 30 minutes, where do you go? Well, you come out of Mackey on this cold night, and now you're going to want to sprint because it's chilly. When you get to the fire station, take that hard left, you'll see the blue and black lights, and inside, you're going to find the most helpful staff on campus. That's right, it's AJ's. Who's going to be in there too? He's kind of like Santa Claus. I know we're past Christmas, but he's like Santa Claus, and his staff is like elves, and he's in there. He's not making toys, but he's making things for stuff and things and delights for good little boys and girls all the way through all around West Lafayette. That's right, it's AJ's. Burgers, beef, beer, boiled sports magnets at the bottom of your pint glass on game day. It doesn't get better. TV's on the wall. What more could you ask for? AJ's.com. Also, if you're in need of a t-shirt, a jacket, a knit sweater with a giant block P, you know what you need to do? A hat, a play hard hat. It's not a hard hat. I keep saying that. It's not a hard hat. It's a play hard hat. Where do you go? Well, you go over to homefieldapparel.com. And when you get to homefieldapparel.com, you have so many things to choose from. Just, you might want to be like me, grab a bourbon or grab your favorite beverage and browse a little bit. It's like taking a walk through the mall, but virtually. Homefieldapparel.com. Very, very good stuff. All right, hold on a second. So, first thing, Purdue is now 16-1. They beat Iowa 79-72. And in my opinion, for 30 or 31 minutes, depending on how you want to look at it, Purdue played a flat-out listless brand of basketball. They were not passionate on the defensive side. The 50-50 balls were not theirs. Iowa was pesky. Iowa shot the ball well. I don't know statistically if that backs it up, but when Iowa needed a big bucket, they got it. When Purdue needed a big bucket, they didn't for a big stretch of that game. And during this, you had TKR getting foul trouble. He had two fouls with I think it was like the 8-minute mark. Is it that early? It was something like that. He didn't play again in the first half, and it hurt Purdue. But at the same time, Daniel Jacobson came in, and you saw a different look as Jacobson grabbed a bunch of boards, cleaned the glass, had some good shot blocks. He and Braden Smith were good in that two-man game, which is nice to see. You had some really, really on-brand officiating for college basketball where for some reason they were picking winners and losers. I don't mind shitty officiating if it's consistent, because you can react to that. But I really dislike officiating that's inconsistent from one side of the ball to the other, from one position to the other. Top of the key on one side, it's a ticky-tack foul. On the other side, they're just beating the hell out of the team. I'm not going to tell you which team, but you already know. That stuff bothered me, and it bothered Purdue. And Purdue, instead of fighting and digging deep and trying to get through the difficult time, they essentially were rolling over, playing right into the hands of Iowa. Iowa played a very slow pace, which they do. And then Purdue decided they're going to play in that same slow pace. And as the game drew down to about 12 minutes left, it felt pretty bad for Purdue fans. Because not so much just because Purdue was down by, I think they were down by 5 or 7 points at that point. But the trends were bad, right? Purdue's effort was horrible. Purdue's communication was bad. Oscar Clough, every time he tried to get physical, he was getting whistled. So the physical brand of basketball that Purdue likes to play was not at all. I'm stopped because they're showing Northwestern after beating Purdue, I believe, on the screen. I think that's who they're showing. I love it. No, it's after beating Illinois. Good. That's nice. Not that much salt in my wound. Still, the wound is there. Yeah, but Purdue, they didn't play a good basketball game for 30 minutes. And this stuff's got to stop. I don't know how else to say it. Purdue's been coasting since Christmas break. I think that's fair to say, right? They get up, and then they would take their foot off the gas. That's what they did before. Well, today, They couldn't find the gas. Their foot was never on the gas. And I'm trying to think of somebody who was playing really well early. Other than Jacobson, there really wasn't anybody. Let's look at the stats together and see if my opinions and the numbers match up. All right, so who led all scorers? Braden Smith led all scorers, but he really did it all in the second half. I think he may have had, did he have no points? I know he didn't have a lot of points. He ends up with 16 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, just a hair below his average. Last game he had 14 assists, if you're keeping score. But he had 3 turnovers, and I think those 3 turnovers were all in the first half. And his assist-to-turnover ratio at one point, I think, was 4-3. I'm almost positive about that. He was not playing his best brand of basketball. He had a couple steals. Those came in the second half. Both Smith and Cox really turned the heat up on Sturts and company, made it difficult on him. Sturts had 2 fouls early. So here's another interesting note about the officiating. Early on, the refs were calling pretty much everything on both sides of the ball. It got TKR in trouble, and it had 3 Iowa players that were in foul trouble. Let's see if I'm right about that. 3 guys had 2 fouls. That must not be right. So it must have been 2 guys with 2 fouls? No, Sturts. There it is. Yeah. So 3 guys had 2 fouls. I think you had Tavion Banks had 2, Bennett Sturts had 2, and Cam Manuel. Sorry, Iowa fans. Had 2 as well. Banks fouled out, and he fouled out on one of the most questionable 5th fouls I've ever seen. This time, the bad officiating favored Purdue, finally. That was towards the end of the game. And it came at Braden Smith, if I remember correctly. Braden Smith, no, the rebound was the previous possession. But it was a bad call, too. That whole thing about the officials giveth and taketh away was really, really applicable here. Another thing that got my attention, a guy named Alvaro Fulgueres. Let's some names on here. Alvaro Fulgueres reminded me of a European soccer player between whistles because he was so dramatic. Everything was dramatic, and it got old watching. And this one got me heated for a lot of reasons. Number one, it was a dogfight. I think Iowa did a great job making it a dogfight. Hats off to them. Hats off to Iowa altogether. And they did it without Sturts for a couple minutes, but then they just flat out, they rolled the dice. They brought him back in with 2 fouls in the second half. He didn't get another foul first half, 2 fouls in the first half. He didn't get another foul for the whole game. So on one side, you have a guy that absolutely gets the All-American treatment. And on the other side, you have a guy who every time he drove in the first half, he was getting tossed to the ground and he was not getting the whistle. And that's the rub. Inconsistency is the rub, right? Bad officiating, okay, whatever. Ticky-tack officiating, whatever. Letting them play, whatever. But don't call 2 different games depending on who's the baseline official. And that's exactly what you were seeing in this one. Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Clough had one of the most frustrating plays that I can remember this season. In the second half, when Purdue was in their lowest part of the game, Oscar Clough threw a very lazy pass. He was up around the 3-point line. Trey Kaufman-Renn was probably at 24 feet, 25 feet. And I was guarding Wren all the way out there to try to deny him the ball. Smart move. Clough throws a lazy pass. Iowa picks it off. And Trey Kaufman-Renn barely takes 2 steps towards the other hoop before Iowa scores on the other end. And that was really, I think I'm not alone in the frustration as watching that type of play. That's really, really rough. And it's really not Purdue basketball. And that was kind of one of the low points, and then things started turning back up. And the catalyst, again, was Braden Smith. There was a really good couple of minutes where it was All-American versus All-American, where you had Sturts, who was guarded by Smith for a little bit, and he had Smith right on him. He did a crossover, step back, hit a 3 in Smith's face, falling away. Great shot. And then Smith went down on the other end, hit a fadeaway on the left baseline. And it was really fun. It didn't really go much further than that. Both players scored their points, but I don't think they were on each other again. In fact, Purdue was very effective when they put C.J. Cox on Sturts. It frustrated him, and he was barely drawing iron. Then they Painter put Fletch Lawyer on Sturts for a minute. And I think his length was the whole story, right? Get a hand in his face, because I think Sturts could shoot over the top of Smith, even though Smith was in good position. And so I think Painter would throw C.J. Cox and Fletch Lawyer at Sturtz, and it was effective at the end. It kept Iowa at an arm's length. Purdue got up by 2.5 possessions, and 2.5 possessions, but really, 2.5 possessions. So 5 to 7 points, and Purdue kept them at an arm's length for the rest of the way. Oscar Clough had 10 points. He had 4 boards. He had 2 assists. He had a pretty hard foul on Alvaro Filgares, and I loved the foul because it was so physical, and it's the type of foul that Clough has talked about before. Guys get sick of having to deal with players coming down every possession and putting a body on them. Was it a legit foul? Yeah, it probably was a legit foul. The problem was, again, on the other side, they wouldn't have blown the whistle. Let's see. Fletch Lawyer, 11 points. He was only 1 for 3 from deep. He really wasn't forcing anything. He had 4 assists that were huge. And like I said, a lot of the Fletch detractors talk about his inability to play defense. And yet, Matt Painter believed in him enough to put him on an All-American in the closing minutes of a game that was still very much on the line. C.J. Cox, 9 points, a rebound, an assist. No steals. But CJ played a great game, and when Purdue needed a bucket, CJ found a way. Off the bench, Daniel Jacobson, 18 minutes, 7 hard points, but 9 big boards. And that's really not his game. It's really not been his game, but it was good to see he was able to do some things as Purdue was kind of licking their wounds without TKR in the game. Omer Meyer had 5 points, but he had a big 3 right when Purdue needed it in the first half as they were kind of out of sorts. Jack Benner had 2 big 3s in a row, finished with 6 points and a pair of assists. Benner played a burst of about 1.5 2 minutes where he's the guy, again, that I can't wait to see as a 35-minute, 34-minute a game type of guy. And a lot of you guys don't have the same feelings for Jack Benner that I do, but it's okay. The bandwagon's going to be here, and the engine will be running, and I'll be driving. Jakari Harris, like I said, 3 points, really solid game defensively, had a pair of steals, and let's see, free throw line. Purdue went to the line a lot this game, and this is the difference in the game right here. Hit 86% of your free throws, you're going to win a lot of games, and they did that tonight. On the other side, Iowa only hit 60%, so that's more like it. Purdue was good from the field, 53%, and from 3, very, very good, 43%. Let's see, one other assist. Yeah, that's a great stat. Purdue had 20 assists as a team. That's stuff you want to see. In the first half, they were really struggling holding on to the ball. They end the game with just 9 turnovers. If Purdue would have kept on that pace that they were on in the first half, they would have lost. And if you feel like this game was different than the other games where teams kind of clawed back in even though it got close, you're right. This was a very different game. And Purdue being down felt different. Purdue had to fight their way out. It's good to see them do that, but I would say, man, they got to take this stuff seriously from the jump. They're too good to mess around to play with their food like they did for 30 minutes. A lot of you guys are here. Appreciate you being here. Anita being versed is first. He says, my cardiologist hates Purdue basketball. I get that, man. Hope you're doing well. John Roberts says, howdy, how are you? Ted Berkey says, every win is beautiful. So this is the thing about these wins. They don't make me feel very good because they frustrate me. Here's the thing. I can live with bad officiating because it's part of the college game. I keep reminding myself that for years. It's just part of the game. I cannot live with Purdue playing listless basketball. Just can't. I hate it. Nate Dolans is here. He says, Iowa hitting some ridiculous threes. Absolutely. They had a banked, almost straight on three-pointer. That was interesting. But Smith turned it up when Purdue was down 9. Yeah, he did. He played like an All-American. Let's see. Adam P. says, phew, that was unnerving. Right on. Ed Albanese, the Gummy Bear King of Northern Indiana, says, what a game. Just frustrating. Very disappointed with TKR. Yeah, his body language was bad all game. And this is the thing about college sports. I don't know how anybody bets on it. I hate to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I don't bet on sports. I sure as hell would never bet on college sports because of stuff like this. TKR is a pretty consistent player, but his body language was bad today. His numbers weren't horrible for him, but he wasn't right. And he got really frustrated. He got sick of what Iowa was doing. Iowa got in his head. Congrats again to Iowa. I think Iowa did almost everything they could in this game. Really, they're a better team than their record. That's the other thing. They're a deadly team on offense. They can shoot from all over the court. And my wife kept saying, this isn't even a good team. And I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty good team. This team's, they'll be good teams this year. I'm sure of it. Marshall Briggs says, hey, Dowd, evening, my friend. Boiler up from Florida. Hope you're well. Where snow is forecasted for this weekend. For real. That's wild. We had a nasty weather day today. The temperature didn't say it was bad. It was like 30 to 33. But you go outside, and it was one of those days where the wind would just rip through you here in Indiana. And then sleet and snow started falling, and it was going sideways because the wind was so hard. So hope you guys get snow. What? It happens, right? It's not super abnormal, but for it to stick, I think you got some that stuck last year. So sorry you're gonna have to deal with that, but I think you got a pretty sweet deal down there. Jay Fosty says Braden controlled the entire second half. CJ was quietly special like always. Weird TKR game. Agreed. Nonetheless, much needed W. Eat AJ's. That is well done. That's a good read right there. That's a good commercial read. Wonderflonium. Great name. Wonderflonium says boiler up, gritty win. I think in some ways, and there were some of you guys on Twitter who said this, you kind of want a game like, especially winning, you want games that reveal character, right? And this type of fight reveals character. Purdue got to see something on how to dig deep. Somebody, I can't remember, I'm sorry, on Twitter said, it reminded them of an elite game. Oh, it was Tom Wichlinski? I think that's right. I think I nailed it even without having it in front of me. So it felt like an elite game, Elite Eight game. And in some ways it did to me, but it was totally self-induced. Purdue put themselves in the position where that game was a lot closer than it needed to be. That said, you have to fight at those points, right? So Purdue did a good thing. And like I said, I think Iowa was tougher than their record. You can disagree, but I think you're wrong. Beater Jung. Did I do that right? Beater Young? I think it's Young. Beater Young. I'm close. We need some of these tight games to prepare us for March. Look at that. Happy it turned out our way. Braden is a dog in crunch time. He is. He's a competitor. He plays big when the lights are on and they're brightest. And he did today. Andy in Colorado says, phew, but a win is a win. Nate Harden, how are you? Says, really upset we didn't get the 15th look at the total time trailing graphic. Yeah, that was one. Nate and I exchanged a note on Twitter there too. That was one of those factoids that they had really seemed like they had paid a lot for that one, so they really wanted to get their money's worth. Good job, BTN. Yeah, that was rough to keep bring it up, but no jinx this time, right? I mean, I think that's what all Purdue fans, you start getting, you're like, get a little edgy, but I know you didn't think that way, Nate. Ed Albany says lack of effort was evident. Maybe something going on between the players. I'm not going to read in too much for it, other than I do think TKR was frustrated. And he got frustrated with Iowa players pretty early. You could see that. And then he got frustrated with the officials. That stuff bothers him way too much. For a guy that's as smart as he is and as control as he is, it's a head scratcher, right? And the fact that he still doesn't have that completely figured out. I don't, as a guy who gets frustrated, a fellow human that gets frustrated, I can relate with TKR. That said, you kind of want to see a little bit of maturation there, but it hasn't happened. Yeah, I gotcha, Ed. Ted Berkey says, effort was poor tonight. Officials were bad both ways. Iowa made circus shots. Purdue still won. That's really very good and succinct. Nick Cristiano says, can we seriously discuss the odd TKR 15-foot one-hand push shot? I feel like he's 30% with those. Also, his effort was non-existent. Weird game for him. Yeah, that push shot is one of those that frustrates a lot of Purdue fans. You're not alone. I hear it a lot on Twitter. As if I can run it up the flagpole and say, hey, let's not do that anymore. The funny thing is he was hitting them at such a high rate early in the season. I mean, like he was kind of money with those. Now it reminds me a little bit of a Tyrone Johnson or a Ronnie Johnson teardrop. And I don't like that. Tyrone, I think he liked it more than Ronnie did. and that was a bit of his bread and butter. So I see Tyrone. I said this to you guys. I see Tyrone weekly here in Fisher, so it's nice. He's doing well, by the way. Ryan McKay. That's it. Ryan, how are you? Yeah, Iowa got a lot of friendly bounces. Ryan, if that's you, I think that's you. Hope you're well. If that's the same Ryan, Ryan and I are, we've got a pretty tight connection I could get into someday, but I'm not. NH host, in-host 95 says, thought it was great resilience by the guys down the stretch when they were trading buckets. Purdue teams of the past would have let it ruin them. Yes, I'd like them to play better, but to grind out some games. Yeah, I agree. Good stuff. I think I butchered that out, not you. Adam P. says, glad to see the team respond when they were down 9. Interesting use of Harris tonight. Has to be the most minutes he's played. He was really, he was important on defense. And he's really patient with his game, too. He doesn't force things. I think he's a guy that gets forgotten by Purdue fans and non-Purdue fans alike, and I think he's going to be really important to the team, not only this year, but next year and years after that. So, yeah, good stuff. Tom Clark says, here's a stat for you. With 10 minutes left, Purdue trailed 50-47. Purdue then scored 15 of the last 16 possessions, scored on 15 of the last 16 possessions. Average points per possession, 2 points. World class. Yeah, that's a great closeout. And that's the thing. That's the type of game that we expect from this Purdue team, right? Where when they get flammable, they torch teams. Let's see. They finished with 79 points. I know 80 points is a magic number for Purdue in the last 10 years. But they almost get there tonight after really, really showing very, very sluggish offense for big chunks of the game. So that's your stat, though. That's a good point. You guys are on today, by the way. Very good stuff, everybody. Sam Hageman says, point to one player with Iowa who can check TKR in the post. We kept getting him the ball 20 feet from the basket, put him on the block, and he grinds them to dust. I agree. I don't think there's an Iowa player that can really guard him straight up. I think they were doing a good job. So this is where the officiating comes in. They were so physical, and it wasn't getting called, and maybe he wasn't standing up to him enough, but he was kind of getting bullied out of the block, right? So that's probably part of his frustration too. So, yeah, there are multiple factors here, but that's a good point. Chris Fuller says, horrible defense last 5 halves. I would argue that you could almost draw to even and get out of horrible in this half because those last 10 minutes were really good. So, but I understand your point. Tom Clark says, all complainers down 3, scored 10 straight possessions, 10 straight. Good stuff. I think it's easy to complain. I think it's okay to be disgruntled with the way Purdue played today. I really do. Because I think Purdue fans who have been here, like all you guys and girls, you know what this team's capable of, and you watch them kind of play with their food, just jack around. It was worse than playing with their food, right? They weren't resolute, they weren't serious, and it showed. Nate Harden says, if you think Iowa players have tough names to pronounce, just wait for Illinois, Europe's U23 team. Are we sure they're U23? Yeah, it's going to be tough for me. And you guys can just come and be entertained as I stumble around when Purdue plays Illinois. Chris Hillman says L. Okay. I don't know what that is. eFizz88 says, this team needs to watch some Chris Kramer, Keaton Grant games to see how you play defense at Purdue. Okay, so I'm kind of glad you brought this up because this is something I've been thinking about a lot. The game has changed so much that a guy like Chris Kramer, I don't even think he'd be, I mean, I know his intensity matters, but he'd be taken out of games very quickly, right? Like, you wouldn't be able to play his way. Obviously, guys like him can adapt, but part of the thing, he was so good, he was so physical and so good at getting in people's jerseys, right? And that stuff's infectious. Smith is the guy that he had a huge steal, and then I think an and one at the other end. That really flipped the game at that 9-minute mark, 10-minute mark, and he's done it all season. When Smith flips that switch on, and then he just says, "Follow me. We're going to go to the promised land." So that's what you want out of your All-Americans. So, Let's see. Greg Mitchell says, winning a game where all your shots rolled off the rim. Yeah, Purdue got a lot of that. And on the other side, Greg, did you notice Iowa was getting the friendliest rolls, especially in the first half? They would have just flat out bricks go straight up and roll in. They had at least 3 where it was like the ball was on remote control. And that's frustrating, especially at home. Okay. Yeah, it prepares you for the tourney, that adversity. I agree, Greg. Tom Clark says, reminder that Ryan Klein bricked a free throw that would have sent us to the Final Four. I never forget that. Yeah, I've moved on. And I can tell you the salve in my wound was what? Getting to Phoenix. For me, you always wonder about how things are going to affect, but yeah, I was at that game. And 2.9 seconds, and Virginia has the ball on the other side of the court, too. A lot of things happen. It's almost like when people look back, Purdue fans look back on Kyle Orton fumbling the ball versus Wisconsin. I always remind them that Kyle Smith also dropped an interception that hit it in the numbers. When Bill Buckner had a ball get through his legs, that wasn't the end of the game for the Red Sox. There's always other plays that you can make. And I know there's like straws that break the camel's back, but at the same time, there's other plays that can be made. And yeah. I don't blame Ryan Klein. I know that, yeah, I've moved on. That's what I'm saying. Greg Mitchell says, before the late 3 air balls, well, there are a couple bricks too. Iowa was over 50% from 3, and yet we won. Yeah, what was their final number there? Let's look at that one real quick. Yeah, 48%. They were bombing, man. And whenever a team bombs like that, I always discredit Purdue's defense. I say that's on you. You got to do something to change, especially when that deluge is falling. You got to do something about it. Karen Grulock, how are you? Says Team Fletch. He was a difference maker tonight. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And he did it on both sides of the ball. And I think there are some people that don't want to give him credit, and he deserves it. He deserves credit. Let me go. Old Goldhammer says, I miss watching Fran have meltdowns. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Iowa is not as hateable right now. I agree. Let's see if I can do this one. Yeah. So there's no transitive property in sports. That says C's. Oh, gosh, I don't even know what that name is. C's OS says Iowa almost beat Iowa State. Yeah. So that was was that a week ago? I think it was. Iowa's tough, and Iowa State was bad that night. That's the other thing, right? There's no transitive property. But I think your point is Iowa's tough, and I think you're right. I think that's I think any fan of basketball that watches Iowa, they're like, okay, that's a tough out. And they really are. And their losses are to really good teams. They have one bad loss, and then they lost to Minnesota. But they lost to Michigan State. They lost to it's teams that are all good. They lost to Iowa State. I think they have 5 now, 6 losses. Everybody but Minnesota is a tough game. Matt Keller says, even when we got down 9, I never panicked. I knew that we were going to come back. Just felt like we were better and about to go on a run. The problem is when you just wait for that, right? That's a problem for our team. When you just say, okay, yeah, about to do it. That Iowa State game is a cautionary tale that if you don't, you got to over-exaggerate it, right? Got to over-exaggerate the effort before the game gets away from you. When it got down by 9, Purdue was not in a good place. No doubt about it. Let's see. Michael Hogue says, hey, B. Dowd, how are you doing tonight? Good. Thank you, sir. Do you think with all the 3 close games Purdue had on the homestand will make them better in the postseason, especially in March? He thinks it will. So the thing that I would say is there's plenty of video now of what happens when you don't play hard. And I know Painter's smarter than me, but it should be a pretty good motivational tactic to these seniors to say, guys, when you don't play your game, you're not a very good team, just flat out. And you can't mess around like you have been messing around. So let's hope they learn. I haven't seen that switch go yet there, right? They played really well after the Iowa State loss. They played with a lot of fight for 2-3 games, and then they play a half, right? Today they played 10 minutes, and it was the end of the game. So yeah. T1 Steve says, great teams find a way to win most games. They found a way. Agreed. M3 Adjuster. Mark says, Iowa made all the shots we left them open for in the first half. Better defense and some world-class scoring in the second half made the difference. Braden took over as needed. Go Boilermakers. It's a good point because in the first half, so Painter teams have the tendency sometimes to totally buy into the statistics and the deep analytics, and they say, okay, we're going to leave one guy open, right? That we see that a lot. And that one guy has shredded Purdue historically. In the first half, it wasn't just one guy, though. Many guys, if they were left open, they hit. And Iowa is a team that can hit threes. In the second half, nobody was getting oxygen, right? Purdue was on everybody. Purdue was fighting over the top of picks, right? Very, very different. And, yeah, that's good stuff. Nate Arden says TKR had bad energy, but his back-to-back and ones were critical and got Purdue back in it early in the second half. Yeah, he hit some pretty big free throws. He had one of those free throws, by the way. That's the same rim that Iowa was getting the rolls with. He had one of those that it bounced around pretty high, right, and still fell. It was the front end, so that was a good one. Pardon me. That's higher proof than I'm used to. Yo says they have to be better overall at home. Agreed. Bitcoin is freedom says, I was so lucky on so many shots. I counted 7 lucky shots, mostly threes that included banks, back of the rim, front of the rim, etc. I'm surprised Iowa only had 50% from 3 with all those rolls. Lucky. I think there's something to be said about good shooters get rolls, right? I think they have very good shooters, and the rim was soft on that side. There's no doubt, especially that first half. But I don't like putting any game at the feet of luck ever. Let's see. Watch Hero of the West says Kramer was so good on D. He would be great today. Oh, he's a great athlete. I'm not saying he's not a great athlete, but his magic sauce was the fact that he could play more physical than anybody on the court, and he could stare evil in the eye. Didn't matter who it was, right? It could be a fast guy, a physical guy, a bigger guy, a quicker guy. Anybody that you needed a stop on, you could put Kramer on. I miss those days, right? Keaton Grant had that. Ray Davis had that at times. But Purdue misses that, having an automatic stopper. I think as close as you've got to that right now is C.J. Cox, which is great to see. Chris Kramer's a great athlete, no doubt. I'm going to skip down. We got a lot. Tom Wichlinski says, Boilers needed a game like this to keep them sharp. We talked about this on Twitter. Hopefully they know they need to bring their A game every night. I think they do. I hope they do. Boiler Bugle says, regarding opponents' three-point percentage, is it the way Purdue's defense is designed? They allow more threes because they're defending twos better. It's definitely part of the design of Painter's defense. A lot of times Painter will trade an open look for a guy who is not good. You always hear this. Stop me if you've heard this on a telecast. They'll say, can you believe it? He's shooting 26% this year and he's hit 2 already in the first half. Well, that's because Purdue's leaving him wide open, right? They're kind of trying to, Painter always says, sometimes you have to choose your poison. If you're trying to take somebody away, somebody's going to be open. And the problem is good teams will make you pay. And they do often for Purdue. So, yes, there is some design there that's involved. Let's see. Jay Boiler, 8686 says, Herb Dove, greatest defensive player ever. Love Herb Dove. Herb Dove and I used to walk back and forth to class. I was fortunate. He was a friend of mine. He had class with my college roommate. And so I got to meet Herb and hang out with him one semester. And it was always like he was walking back to Mackey. And I lived at Cary, and we got to hang out together during the walk. Talked about the shoe deal Purdue had at Nike and what the players actually got. He's a great guy, great dude. MSP 138 says, usually in a game like this, some role player has a career high versus Purdue. Combs looked like that might be him tonight. Glad the Boilers pulled this one out right on. And let's see, I'm going to get one more here. Beater Junk says, thumbs up for our guy, everyone. Thank you, Dowd. Appreciate it. And somebody gave me some good feedback. They said, the 35-minute post-game is a good thing for them. I'd like to trim it down even more, if I'm being real honest. I love talking to you guys. I mean, there's a lot of you that I didn't read your comment, nothing personal, but I try to get everybody who's in here. I think I got everybody. T. Camel says, cheers, Dowd. Purdue's D has to improve if we want to get to Indy and beyond. No doubt. So they're about the halfway point of the season. There's a lot that can be learned. The big thing that I would say is not just reinstall a new defensive set. The big thing is just play with more consistency and intensity. When I coached little kids, they used to say, I'm saving my energy. And I'd say, you don't save your energy, you use it all now. And I kind of feel like that speech is needed sometime with this Purdue team, because it's almost like they're waiting for the end of the season. That's what they've been looking forward to. But if you don't you don't handle your business in the Big Ten, and you don't earn a 1 or 2 seed, you kind of ruin all the things that have been set up for you, right? Purdue needs that Midwest path. They need a 1 or 2 seed. I'd really like a 1 seed. Purdue looks like one of the truly elite teams in the nation. The record shows it. The analytics show it. You know, they've been consistently in the top 5. Every metric, their offensive efficiency looks great, but you can't mess around with effort. And I think it's that simple. And I hope Braden Smith and Fletch and TKR start finding something that pisses them off before more games. Next up, I believe it's the West Coast swing now. Now they go out west for 2 straight games. Those are going to be hard games physically to play in. This is where seniors should make a difference and help these guys say, you know, keep your feet under you, keep playing hard, and find a couple wins out there. You come away from the West Coast with 2-0, and you're in really, really, really good position to win the conference. And then the hard stuff starts happening at the end of January. I've been talking about for a while. So thanks to everybody. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate that, Michael. I see your comment down there. God bless you. Hammer down. Talk to you soon. Purdue is 16-1, and we'll talk to you after the next game late.